And what's the deal, friends? It is your boy, Professor G. Mark Gray. Thanks for hanging out with us. It's OG Sports Rap here on the network. You can also find it here on Substack. So I appreciate you hanging out with me as we have now officially turned the corner. And football season is certainly in the rear view mirror. Now, we can put, everything but the off-season maneuverings in the front office to bed. And given that the NFL is still on that, afterglow from a Super Bowl that wasn't that great, but it was still the Super Bowl nonetheless, the season is now over. And thankfully, we can focus our attention on basketball. That's right. Big loss last night in college basketball, I might add, as Arizona went from the ranks of undefeated. But who didn't see that coming? I mean, it was the perfect setup game if you play those games of chance. You had a undefeated Arizona Wildcats team who's going up to Lawrence, Kansas. And if there's one place in America where you're undefeated and your streak comes to an end, it would be Fog Allen Fieldhouse. I mean, there's certain places that you don't want to go into undefeated with a raucous crowd. Fog Allen being one of them, Cameron Indoor being another. I think that UConn is becoming that right now. People didn't even really look at UConn as a home court advantage, but especially when you get out to Gamble Pavilion and stores, basically East Hartford, right? It's a different animal altogether. But we've turned the page on football. It has now finally come to an end. So we can focus on basketball. And there's nothing like focusing your attention on the new and improved All-Star Game format. And, of course, nothing sets the tone for moving towards the second half of the season than a reaction to trade deadline moves, which I ain't getting into anymore. We did it already. Teams have made their moves, and now it's about seeing what happens on the floor, period, point blank. I'm not overanalyzing this. I'm not going to be like ESPN's awful NBA daily program. They have got to fix that mess. Dear ESPN, fix your basketball studio show. And as a matter of fact, you already got Ernie Johnson, Kenny Smith, Shaquille O'Neal, and Charles Barkley. Blow that other stuff out. Put it on in the afternoon when most people are at work and we cannot watch. Because you know why? The NBA today, or whatever they call it, is unwatchable. It has no chemistry, and it's kind of like the personification of these new school ex-athletes turned broadcasters who just crap on the new generation of players. And I have to ask, them right now. Everybody from Big Perk, who I do dig. He's about the only person on the ESPN package as an analyst that I like. I'm going to be perfectly blunt with that. But when you hear guys like Big Perk, Damian Woody, Wagyu, who I love, bless you, boy, can't do no wrong here, all right? But what's becoming offensive to me as I never played pro sports, all right? I have been a professional in covering the games, okay? And I take that pretty serious because I was told growing up in the early days of a journalism career, right, that you don't make it personal. You can have your analysis. You can have your thoughts. They may be off the beaten path, but if you can substantiate them, you are not the slur. And what I see right now in this ESPN-promoted compromised ethics for ratings world that we now live in, it's fair game for what would be considered old school analysts, retired players, taking unfair shots at the new generation of players. Now, again, I'm pretty much, as Professor G, I watch the evolution of human beings who are, growing up and going into professional life. But what has happened here is the license by producers and broadcast network executives have turned what should be cogent and thoughtful analysis into clickbait slurs. And that's what's happening with analysis of every sport right now. It's like all the players who have these podcasts, which are hilarious, and a lot of people look at me some type of way because I'm that dude that kind of will tune in to Pat McAfee. I mean, we probably on totally different sides of the political spectrum, okay, because he's down with Bruce Pearl, and I think Bruce Pearl is a child of the devil, but that's neither here nor there, right? But I will respect the fact that in their haste to crack jokes, they don't seem to be the ones that are taking shots at players. And I'm just wondering, where is the sense of loyalty? Yeah, that's right, because you'd have been complaining at somebody like me if I said half the incendiary stuff that these retired professional athletes are doing every day now to the fraternity that's following them. Now, I don't see that with the women's sports, and women's sports have proliferated and gotten to a point these days where you have to look at them as separate but equal, okay? I don't see the ladies condemning the character of other women, even if they disagree. And I think that is something that between gambling and between the slurs by old school generation of athlete on this generation of athlete has got to stop. It's got to stop, and what's happening is people are fueling the fire so that the underlings of the people that are getting dissed will roll up on people. And I'm sorry, this is ghetto sensibility training, having grown up in the hood, okay? And a lot of the kids who are now rich millionaire types have their friends who come from backgrounds like mine. If they take umbrage, which is they would be well in their right to do these days, by a lot of guys who are just crapping on them. And what the deal is, this isn't necessarily about playing either. This isn't about performance. Okay, it's not. I think what happens is with each generation of athlete and salaries escalating, it makes the previous generation, frankly, jealous. Yep. And what happens is if you have a charismatic personality and you sprinkle in some prejudice, add that secret sauce of animus, and then you go into a production meeting to discuss how you're going to come out, and then you're going to start slurring people. And coaches are not beyond the realm of being called out for this too. Because the next time I see Rex Ryan on TV talking about somebody who can't coach, somebody needs to check him and let him know that he ain't never going to be mentioned in the same category as a head coach with Belichick, Chuck Noll, Vince Lombardi, Joe Gibbs. He ain't going to be none of them, okay? So I don't want to hear this nonsense any longer just because you got a gregarious personality and you Buddy Ryan's son that you get a chance to take freaking shots at other people in the game. Hell, you had your chance to coach the Jets. And yeah, that's right. He was on the sidelines for the Jets, Jets. And he was a culprit in several seasons of the Jets, Jets, being that proverbial MESS mess that they continue to be. It is so much revisionist history. I keep watching this guy, Bruce Pearl. Bruce Pearl is notorious for violations of NCAA rules, yet I'm still seeing his orange face around college sports. At some level, Shouldn't you be banned from the sport or commentating after you have not only violated NCAA sanctions, you went back and did it again? And you can look at my body of work. You can, because I called him out a long time ago. This is, nothing personal. It's strictly attitude and facts. The guy's a multiple NCAA violator who lied to NCAA investigators and was given a show cause order twice, if I'm not mistaken. Well, there were 2 times he had to be suspended for that. And now he's an analyst. You should not have people with black eyes on their characters sitting behind a microphone dissecting and criticizing games. Okay? That's like being a felonious crackhead and being told that you got to go undercover to try and clip a narcotics salesman. That's what it is. So I'm sick and tired of this sanctimony that we watching all the time during these off-season where you don't have anything going on. You got to fill time and content, and it, guess what, comes back as hate, shade. That's what it is. Period, point blank. So if anybody out there has been wondering what we're talking about, we start throwing shade. Most of the stuff, when you listen to people, and you will hear it for the balance of this NFL offseason leading right up to the underwear Olympics known as the NFL Combine. You will have players that will be devalued. And the same thing happens with marketing opportunities and the like when these guys are throwing out, personality-based commentary that is more about their feelings and less about the facts. And that's all we want. I'm not going to be one of those hating reporter types that nobody's ever heard of. Well, you hear me now, okay? And yes, I spent a cup of coffee at the Worldwide Leader hosting national radio talk programs, okay? I've been on Sirius XM doing the same thing. I don't have anything to hide. I'm just saying, as a fan first and consumer of the sports analytical product, because there is no journalism no more. We found that ended last week when it came to sports, when Jeff Bezos pulled the plug on the Washington Post sports section, which was a vanguard for sports journalism in the world. I mean, it's kind of crazy. You used to be able to go to the Washington Post website and see running scores from the Olympics. Not anymore. And then you flip over to the Worldwide Leader, and it is just like, all right, 24-hour, on-demand, analytical hate. And it must stop. Really, it must stop. And I'm telling you, the wrong big-ass mouth is going to say something foul, and it's going to lead to shady ramifications. I'm telling you, man. Trust me on this. There are too many people out here who have friends from backgrounds that are somewhat nefarious, and they take offense to what a lot of these ex-athletes are saying. And I just hope to God, the NBA All-Star game coming up this weekend, a lot of guys will bring friends who, they just want to experience the fun times that they're going to have in Los Angeles. I'm just hoping that this doesn't escalate into something that becomes, confrontations between, like, say, Stephen A. and LeBron on the sidelines because he opened his big-ass mouth and some fecal matter comes out of it. Anyway, back on the other side, we got more of what you came here for. It is OG Sports Rap on the network and on Substack. It's Sports Rap Network. Download the mobile app. We all we got. It's your boy, Professor G, back at it. Mark Graves to give him a government name. Thanks for hanging out with us. It's OG Sports Rap here on the network and on Substack. So thank you so much for hanging out with me, whatever platform you may be getting this on. But just tell about 100,000 of your close personal friends to download the mobile app, Sports Rap Network, so that you can take us on the go wherever you are going, whenever you got to go. even into the potty. But that's a topic for a whole nother show. Anyway, as we continue to move it along, sometimes, you get to the end of your wits and you just need a break away from your fellow employees and the job that you love doing. Yes, even in this line of work, I need to get away sometimes for no other reason than just because. And sometimes when you get to, days before the vacation, people just pick your last nerve. That's what they do. And so what happens? You end up having some sort of fisticuffs. And what ultimately happens at that point is you end up, fighting. And it would be safe to say that the NBA right now has to come to grips with the facts that teams apparently going into the postseason or into the season, the Midwinter Nights Classic, as I like to refer to it. I'd have to say that NBA players now look to be burned out. And all you got to do is just look at the big brawl last night between the Charlotte Hornets and the Detroit Pistons. And basically, there was a face-to-face confrontation where Moussa Diabate and Duren kind of appeared to butt heads. Now, Duren shoved Diabate in the face, and then it was on from there. So Diabate got ejected for a hard foul and then attempting to punch Duren. And then Miles Bridges gets ejected for shoving Duren and throwing punches during the melee. So put everything in the mix. And then, of course, Duren had to be ejected for his role because he shoved Diabate. And then Isaiah Stewart of the Pistons got ejected for rushing off the bench to join the fight. And then Coach Charles Lee got ejected in the fourth quarter after a separate incident where he had to be restrained while arguing an official's call. So the Hornets fall 110-104 to Detroit. A big headline that gets totally overlooked because of the fight was Cade Cunningham continuing to add to his MVP argument, dropping 33 points in the victory. Now, Brandon Miller did what he could for the Hornets. He dropped 24, but this is one of those moments where in the haste to make your initial point, these guys may have hurt themselves for the rest of the season, and in so doing, may have affected their teams. Now look, this could go any one of a number of different ways, but you got to believe there's going to be multiple suspensions. You're probably going to see Isaiah Stewart from the Pistons getting about a $50,000 fine because he's on the radar. I mean, once you become a person who is described as being a player that consistently has a history of what they call unsportsmanlike acts, and that he threw punches at Miles Bridges, his suspension could be more than just the automatic one game that he gets with that $50,000 fine. Isaiah, you have a team that is competing for the top seed in the Eastern Conference, and you are a big factor in where this team's going to be seeding. Because to me, in the Eastern Conference, seeding is going to be everything going into the playoffs. Everything. Teams who got a chance, like Boston and New York, they're going to be tough outs if you got to win a Game 7 in that building. I think Detroit, if they can handle the moments of maturity, right, where you got to make big plays in big moments and sometimes on the road. We don't know that about the Pistons. That's why it's important for them, in my opinion, to have home court. But this is where it has to become a teaching moment for J.B. Bickerstaff. This is supposed to be the moment where everybody has to understand, and you can dare to invoke the championship in a season like this when you're addressing your team. Now, I don't know how JB's going to handle it, but I would have a come-to-Jesus conversation with my team. I would tell them, hey, look, we got bigger fish to fry than for your testosterone to get in the way of a championship run that we are indeed hoping to make. Okay? So just so you understand the magnitude of where we are, it's not about you, it's about the team. And sometimes you got to suppress your feelings so that you can, A, be available for your team and not suspended. Because a suspension is just like an injury. You know, your best ability for your team is availability. And whether you're injured or suspended for 2 or 3 games, that's a big loss. That's a big, big loss. And again, I understand that coaches are getting frustrated with officiating. And I can dig why. Because officials are no longer officiating the games. I'm sorry. They're officiating games so that they don't get exposed for making bad calls by Big Brother. Now, of course, Big Brother in this case would be instant replay. Nobody wants to get overturned by instant replay. And coaches, quite frankly, have now got to do a better job of keeping their composure even when there's mistakes. And there are mistakes being made, but the game is being played at a faster pace with more athleticism than we've ever seen in the league, ever. Okay? So it's difficult to officiate the game, but it's also becoming more and more difficult for coaches and players to maintain their composure. And when you look at, like, guys who are snapping like this, you know, Miles Bridges is a perfect example. This is a critical component to the Hornets who's likely to face a multi-game suspension for thrown punches. You know, they're also investigating LaMelo Ball, who is coming into his own as a player, to see whether or not he left the bench area during the fracas, which would then immediately trigger another automatic 1-game suspension. And see, there's no verbiage in the collective bargaining agreement that says you should be suspended after an altercation, but the league cannot let that look play out with every game on TV. Okay? And Joe Dumars, great Piston that he is typically a guy that drops the hammer with reckless impunity. And most of the suspensions would begin immediately, which would probably hurt some of these teams, especially the Hornets, who've got the Hawks tomorrow night. Thinking, guys, think. This is the moment that you have to get beyond yourself. And again, I know the stress. And these guys are stressing. This is a big money moment. I mean, let's be clear for a second. You got guys that are playing for free agency. You got guys that are playing for that extra playoff check, right? You know, people do have lifestyles that they're thinking about. But in this particular instance, you can see that there's a certain amount of burnout, which leads to these escalated altercations, which are embarrassing for the league. And it's just ironic that the bad boys, next generation from Detroit, are the team in this particular case who get involved with the Hornets. And what is the deal with the Hornets? I mean, really. I mean, Charlotte is not exactly, you know, it's a metropolitan area, but it's not metropolis, if you know what I'm saying. I mean, it's a country kind of big city town, right? And Bible Belt and all that kind of stuff. People aren't used to seeing, hockey fights break out at basketball games. That's just unacceptable behavior. And I get in the heat of the moment and all that kind of stuff. But when you have these guys who are consistently having their skill set, commitment, and most of all, manhood challenged, not just only on the floor, but by the folks who are making these character assessments in the context, of basketball plays and ruining their personalities, their marketability. You're going to have a lot more stuff like this. Folks are snapping. And again, the beef that I have is, the narcissistic professional athlete of the day who was scrutinized back in his days when he played. Now he's got a microphone in front of him and unfettered access to start making character assaults. All that pressure builds up on these players. And again, we talking about guys that are basically between 25 and 35 here. As one who's knocking on 60 this year, I know damn well I was a lot less mature than I am right now. So you're prone to behaviors which make you look bad, doesn't help you, and hurt the team even more. And I would like to see some of these loudmouths who sit in their sanctimonious place, like particularly the ones, you can say what you want about Ernie, Kenny, Shaq, and Chuck. Because everybody on that set, with the exception of Kenny, is a Hall of Famer, and everybody except Chuck and, of course, Ernie have a championship ring. And Ernie doesn't get one because he didn't play, and Barkley didn't get one because, well, he played in the era of Michael Jordan. But that's a topic for another show. Still, I can see signs of burnout around the association. I'm just hoping that Monday night was not a direct indication of what we may be seeing this coming weekend. Because this is supposed to be the basketball celebration. This is supposed to be the kumbaya moment. This is supposed to be where all of the legends and we just come together and we sit back and we embrace the game, a game that we love. But the NBA has an image problem again, and they got to fix it. You got between load management, officiating, immature behavior by guys who are generationally wealthy, who really don't have a commitment to the game. There are some character issues with the association right now, and we got to address that. If you're a fan, if you're a former player, that's why I hope the legends of basketball can at least have some kind of influence on the next generation. And I also hope that the next generation is willing to learn. I mean, this is not the greatest era of basketball. It may be the most athletic, but when it comes to the intangible that make this a all-time era, I think it's kind of all-time era of narcissism than it is for basketball. Anyway, your thoughts, hit me up at The Sports Groove on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, or leave me a message on Substack. It's your boy, Professor G. Mark Gray. It's OG Sports Rap on the network. Remember, download the mobile app. We all we got. And we rock on. It is OG Sports Rap here on the network. It is your boy, Professor G. Mark Gray. Thanks for hanging out with us at this time as we continue basically recovering from our football hangover. That's right. I mean, it takes about 48 hours for you to get all of the football and pomp and circumstance, liquor and beer out of your system. And then you start realizing that, as difficult as it is for some people to get over the loss as a fan, there are those who just can't get over the hate that they experience all of the time when somebody exceeds them. And I think that's where we are right now with this proverbial Chris Brown saga. In case y'all missed it, Chris Brown came out of his face with some detrimental there were some, let's just call them disappointing takes on Bad Bunny. Chris Brown seems to think that Bad Bunny is less than he is. And right now, I mean, the next time Chris Brown has a hit record will be his first in a minute. I mean, there's just no getting over that. And so when this idiot, I mean, who's anything but a role model, I mean, let's be real for a second. I mean, this dude hadn't been relevant in quite some time, other than when he was beating up on Rihanna, allegedly. That's crazy, right? This dude who's been a public, woman beater. Let's be clear for a second. Got all kinds of women around the world sprung on him because of his acts, and he goes beat them up. There's nothing worse than a dude that beats up on women thinking that he's high post. Okay? And I think that's where Chris Brown is right now. I'm sorry, Chris. Now, why am I throwing shade on Chris Brown? I'll tell you why. Chris Brown took to Instagram, and you all probably have heard about this right now. And remember, for the record, when we start talking about Chris Brown, the woman beater, okay, since he wants to go out there and hate on Bad Bunny, let's talk about what happened in the UK, okay, where coming up in this October in London, he's going to stand trial on charges of, quote, grievous bodily harm with intent. Charges stemming from a 2023 nightclub incident involving producer Abe Zhao. Now, Brown has pleaded not guilty. He's been granted $6.7 million in bail. Just think about that. You must be off the chart when your bail is $6.7 million. And that's back based on May 2025 assessments. So desperately needing money. Last month, he sued for defamation after the Chris Brown, quote, A History of Violence documentary was produced by Warner Brothers Discovery. And so after trying to, grift his way into a $500 million lawsuit, the judge threw it out. Okay? Last month. Well, I'm sorry. Yeah, last week. He's got a new royalties lawsuit against the songwriter Steve Chocpel. That's right, saying he allegedly unpaid royalties and didn't give credit for Mona Lisa and Sensational to Chocpel. I mean, maybe it's me, but there seems to be a certain Diddy-like quality to Chris Brown. Okay? Let's be 100% clear about that. I mean, this is a dude who had everything and it wasn't enough. And you have to ask yourself, why? What kind of dude like you feels the need to beat up on women and then call somebody else out for for outperforming you in platform, shall we call it, that you're no longer invited to? And believe you me, as long as Jay-Z is the director of the Super Bowl performances, Chris Brown's never getting in. I mean, Rihanna is like his little sister, right? And I think he would ride or die for her. And so after the unmitigated shade, what is Chris Brown thinking? His image is not good now. I mean, matter of fact, he's now fallen to the category of once was, no longer is. He once was a chart-topping celebrity. Now he is a woman-beating loser. And for him to post on Instagram stories, I think it's safe to say they need me. Yeah, we do need you. We need you to stay away from the Super Bowl. We need you to stay away from social media when you're shading people. I mean, Chris, you beat women, bruh. Okay? They make Law and Order episodes about your character. All right? Dick Wolf has ripped your storylines from the headlines to have multiple episodes of Law, you know? I think somewhere Jesse Hill Jr. is thanking him very much for keeping him employed. I'm saying. So this is ridiculous. Chris Brown looks like a fool. You know? There's no redeeming quality to that human being anymore. He's a failure at life. Yeah. I mean, the world's a better place if he finds himself a cave and moves into. This is a pathetic and disgraceful individual right now who's shamed himself, and I don't think he's bookable anymore. Who wants to see? I'm a dad. All right, I'm girl dad. Ain't no way in the hell I'm spending no money with Chris Brown. Okay? He think he Billy Badass because he beating up on women. Hey, step off on somebody, go mess with a rapper from the Bay Area and see if you pull that off. I like to see you do some dumb stuff like that. You beat women and you call out somebody that had one of the best performances at the Super Bowl. Period, point blank. The only reason that 47 is hating on Bad Bunny is because he didn't speak English. That's it. You want to beef about that? If it was an opportunity to, he used it as an opportunity. Last I checked, and I just want to put this out there, we do have a state or a province, or I guess a territory as they look at Puerto Rico, right? But that's still us. Okay, just because Bad Bunny speaks a different language doesn't mean he ain't one of us. Chris Brown, my friend, to quote Kendrick Lamar, you ain't like us. Okay, let's be clear about that, bruh. You beat women. You don't deserve another hit record. You don't deserve another movie idea. You need to be what you deserve, and what you're getting right now is social ostracization. Yeah. We banished your ass. Dudes don't respect you. Anybody, any regular dude right now just wants to punch you in the face just because. I ain't a violent person, but, given the opportunity, your nose is broken. And that's real talk. Because there's no place for this. None whatsoever. Just, you should have enough money saved, okay, so that you shouldn't be grifting people. I mean, when you're asking for $500 million from Warner Brothers, pardon me, you on the grift, dog. You are on the grift. And you look bad for it. You look like you begging. You look like a panhandling former athlete who wasted all his money on booze and broads. Yeah, that's what you look like right now. And then you're going to go public with it? And then the public at that moment just roast you. I mean, you now are Nicki Minaj with a different package. The skank that gets no work, turns her back on her, well, at least if she's turning her back, she's not on her back, which is most of the time. But I will say this. Chris Brown is operating in that insulated world where I've done no wrong and I don't know why people don't like me. And I don't know why Jay-Z won't put me on at the Super Bowl. Because you beat up his little sister. Okay? I guess what? You touch my little sister, you pretty much gonna... Well, let's just say that what Jay-Z has done, and Jay-Z is a mogul enough to cancel your ass in the business now. All right? Let's be clear. With his diversity and success in producing records, producing the Super Bowl, raising a daughter who's probably going to exceed the talent and the money and the wealth and the influence that both her parents have in our world order at this time. Chris Brown is none of that. Okay? He's none of it. And his problem is he's that pretty boy from back in the day who thought he was going to be all of that forever. And it's hard to feel bad for Chris Brown because he brought it on himself. He really did. Just like he did with Instagram. Dude, no matter how pissed off you are, you can't be taking to social media. And if you are going to take to social media, the innuendo, the rhetoric ought to be clever. You was just ghetto. And that's the problem with Chris Brown. Masked behind the suburban look and the quasi-intellect is a wannabe thug. And wannabe thugs will beat up on girls because they can't beat dudes. So this is a wake-up call for Chris Brown. and you got a case in October, too? Heck, now I got to put that on the calendar, too. College football starts, pro football starts, Chris Brown trial starts. Right? Got to be there for that. I miss court TV. I would like to see the Chris Brown trial. I really would. I mean, because he's been reckless. He's been obnoxious. He's been an embarrassing disgrace to himself and his family. I mean, let's be real for a second. There was probably a time in Chris Brown's family life where they were like, that's my cousin. That's my nephew. That's my boy. And now like, yo, I don't have nothing to do with that fool. He ignorant. Just straight ignorant. And that's Chris Brown's fault. And so count me as one. Hey, look, would it have been nice to see a brother up there? I don't know. I'd seen one the year before who got it in. Didn't matter to me. And I couldn't understand a word that Bad Bunny was saying. But it was a great performance. The beats were hot. The energy was there. You know, what was Chris Brown going to do? Try to revisit Michael Jackson where he stole most of his moves from? Come on, man. Chris Brown's a loser. Okay? He really is now. He's a whack performer. But I tell you what, sooner or later, he will do what all the other whack performers will do. I'm going to put out a prop bet for you and see if you want to take it. When it comes to finding a celebrity who will play at the new version of the Kennedy Center, put Chris Brown at the top of the list. I bet you he'll kiss the ring of the Donald. Anyway, it is OG Sports Rap on the network. It's your boy, Professor G. Back on the other side, I found my daily Olympic man crush name. And this time, it's an American. It's OG Sports Rap on the network. Remember, download the mobile app. We're all we got. We're rolling to another hour. Thanks for hanging out with us. It is OG Sports Rap on Sports Rap Radio Network. That's right. Download that mobile app. Tell about 100,000 of your close personal friends that they should be basically tuning in because, well, if you miss a day, then you do indeed miss a lot. And I think that in many respects, a lot of people are missing the boat. But I think even before the Olympic Games started, that the Italian Olympic Committee or the International Olympic Committee, whoever ordered the medals, need to get a refund, because this is just absolutely insane. In case you missed it, Olympic organizers are investigating with what they, quote, call maximum attention, end quote, after a bunch of medals fell off their ribbons during celebrations during the opening weekend of the games. Now, you know something? It's funny because, and you all know, those of you who've been listening this week, that I'm an Olympic snob. I've been watching it since I was like 5 years old, and I get into stuff like this. And I normally find a name that I associate with for these games. And yesterday, I thought I was totally sprung on a gold medal speed skater from Italy, Francesca Lollobrigida is, I guess, how they kind of, I hope I got it right in the way that the Italians pronounce her name, because she's an attractive woman and she's a champion of the world. So Got to give her hers. All right. But then this morning, I'm up early watching some ski stuff live. And the 6 hour ahead of us is great because I can get up in the morning, take a shower, or better yet, do what I do is soak in the tub with my tablet next to me and watch the Olympics. And it's great. So I now have another new favorite name at these Olympics. And this time I did not capitulate to the home nation. My favorite American name at the Olympics is now gold medalist Breezy Johnson. Yes, boys and girls, there's a woman who goes by the name of Breezy, which brings to mind all kinds of visuals. I know the first thing I thought was, are there holes in your undergarment so you can feel breezy when you're going down the course? No, but whatever the heck it was, right? She was jumping around in excitement, as well she should. She trained for her life to compete for a gold medal. She competed at a high level and won the gold medal. And soon as she won the gold medal or got the gold medal and jumped up in hers, it broke. That's right, boys and girls. There's no way other than to look at this. And I'm sorry, Italy. The host committee has to take this as one of the most embarrassing circumstances in the history of the games, certainly in the history of the modern games. I mean, let's be real for a second. Athletes compete for medals, okay? And when you get those medals, they're supposed to last a lifetime, not just until you get off the podium, okay? Never before in the history of the Olympic movement have we seen medals break. I want to know what kind of medal that they're using for gold, silver, and bronze. Matter of fact, I thought those were things that you could find that were part of nature. You can find gold, you can find silver, you can find bronze. You clean it up, you refine it, and it becomes jewelry. Where'd they get this? What are these? Thrift store medals? Really? Well, I mean, to me, and I don't want to be stereotypical here, but there's been notable corruption in Italian sports. With all due respect, I mean, just look at the soccer league over there. You know, we're not going to talk about what their president, Silvio Berlusconi, was doing when he owned a team. As a matter of fact, he used the popularity of his team to become tyrannical president of a nation. So it does not shock me that in this moment, right, here we are talking about athletes and their medals, which are no more. That's where we are with it, boys and girls. That's where we are, okay? It's a criminal disgrace that it goes down like this. But the moral to the story is it's still going down like this. And I'm trying to figure out why. How did the brain surgeons for the Olympics come to the realization or didn't know that they were building broken medals? Now, look, again, this offers up a perfectly wonderful time to bring about some terrible stereotypes. Because we all know, you know, the mafia references and breaking fingers. If you owe me some money, so I got to break your finger. Then you go get me some money. We'll put it back, you know? But I mean, I'm pretty sure the host committee gave some trophy place a big check and they couldn't even get it right. I'm mystified at the notion. I really, really am. It floors me to no end how you could have an Olympics, right, when you know you're giving out medals, and guess what? The medals that you're giving out are broken. Wow. I mean, it's something as simple as jumping around in ecstasy, and then it breaks off. And then there's some people who have not only had, it's one thing for you to drop the medal, it splits in half, you can plausibly save it. But when it's shattered into hundreds, maybe even thousands of broken parts, you're done. You're absolutely done. So my question would be, if I'm an Olympic athlete, what would be a worse fate? To not qualify for the finals in your event, or to be standing on the medal stand and have your medal break? Wow. I'm sorry, Italy, this is an international embarrassment. I mean, when y'all get to LA, and I'm sure there'll be some embarrassing circumstances at the LA games, but I would tend to believe that America will still be good enough where our Olympic Committee is going to make sure that at the very least, the medals do not break when you wear them. I mean, wow. There were people who couldn't even get it back to the box so that they could put it in and put it on their trophy case forever. Unbelievable. I mean, this is the type of stuff that has to be investigated. And it's an international disgrace for the Italians. I'm sorry that this story hasn't gotten the kind of traction that a number of other things would have had they gone down for real. But again, this is still the first week. There's a whole lot of Olympics left to go here. But the fact that if you're competing in an event, not an individual event, like some of that, I will tell you that ski stuff that they're doing, from the X Games, they've got these, it's like you're going down a downhill, but it's a slalom course. And at some point you got to jump on those arm rails with your skis and then do backflips. It's amazing stuff to watch, especially with the technology of the moment. But there will be those like me who will forever remember the Milano Cortina, I believe it is. Milano Cortina, right? That's what they are. Milan and Cortina. Boy, that's a great name. I like that. Milan Cortina. But that's the cool thing about the Italian culture, man. Just about everything is a name. I mean, it's great. But if you're an athlete and you win a medal, then you would like to be able to get home with your medal, or at least off the medal stand, which is crazy. Absolute absurdity. Makes absolutely no sense. For the love of God, I would like to know how the Italian Olympic Committee and the International Olympic Committee came together and forgot to make sure that you had budgeted enough for, medals to last beyond the ceremony. Is that asking too much? I mean, really. Remember, part of the Olympic Charter is for the glory of sport and the honor of our country. Well, there's nothing more inglorious than being a victor and your medal breaks. I'm just sorry. Now, we're not talking kneecaps here. We're not talking about fingers, appendages. We're talking about moments signifying your greatness as a champion that you don't get to take home. Come on, man. I mean, for real. Now, again, I don't use this as a ringing indictment of the people of Italy, but, if it looks kind of corrupt and it smells kind of corrupt, then it might be corrupt. I mean, did Luigi give his little brother Giuseppe the contract that should have gone to somebody else? And then they cut corners and use not real elements for the signature of being a champion? You want to talk about doing something that violates every principle of the Olympic experience? Becoming a champion and your trinkets break is reprehensible. It's just absolutely reprehensible. It's embarrassing. And I know NBC is caught up in the politics. They can't call out the IOC. They can't call out the Italian organizing committee. They can't do anything like that. They know it would be international protocols violated. But what they've done is by creating this embarrassing situation, which led to heartache for athletes. And I mean, let's be real for a second. The thought that Olympic athletes aren't getting paid anymore is ludicrous. All right. They found a way to come up with NIL long before we knew what NIL was here in the United States. But they've had it for years. Okay. You're supposed to be an amateur athlete. You can't get paid to compete, but you've got sponsorship dollars. So, well, now I'm like, okay, isn't it about time to get somebody else? Get a corporate partner that can make you medals now. And just to throw out a nail like Zales, something like that, some people who are used to making jewelry that works, okay? And at the end of the day, your trinket, your gold, silver, bronze medal is effectively a piece of jewelry, okay? It is a trinket of significance. And I would equate it to losing a wedding band. I would equate it to losing a crucifix or something that was handed down from your family. This is absolute absurdity. Absurdity. And it is an embarrassing international disgrace. And if it had happened in America, people would be condemning us for the committed to corporate capitalists that the nation is. But we ain't got nothing to do with this. This is not an American thing. As much as they will try to blame us for anything that goes wrong because they're interpreting our society through the prism of a madman, but that ain't us. Trust and believe, when the Olympics get here in 2 years in LA, despite the infrastructure problems, I guarantee that the athletes will be able to leave with medals that aren't broken. And that's where we are with this thing. Okay? Anyway, it's your boy, Professor G. Mark Graves, OG Sports Rap on the network. Download the mobile app because we're all we got. Believe it or not, despite the fact that when I look outside of my windows these days, I'm still seeing mounds, literally mounds of snow. It is absolutely bananas. But just to let you know, the spring is around the corner, boys and girls. Pitchers and catchers have reported to Major League Baseball spring training camps throughout the major leagues. That's right. So this is about the time in the season where hope springs eternal for just about everybody. And then somewhere around the middle of May, harsh realities will set in. I'm sorry, I'm a jaundiced Oriole fan. Team can't get right, but I digress. It is OG Sports Rap as we continue here on the program. That's right. Interesting tidbits jumping off on a day where the Detroit Tigers brought back home Justin Verlander to basically finish his career. We're talking about a guy that's on a 1 year, $13 million contract. And I think the biggest impact that he's going to have is basically to console and be another pitching coach, if you will, for Tariq Skubal. Now, let's be clear about something. It's not like the dude needs a great deal of coaching, but sometimes you need to hear a message from somebody who's got to go out there and toe the rubber every 5 days. And I can't think of anybody better to have than a Hall of Fame caliber pitcher like Verlander. Now, again, I'm not expecting Verlander to be the first Verlander that he was early in his career before he left the Tigers. But the savvy that he's gotten, and I'm a firm believer that if you really want to compete for a world championship, you got to have somebody with at least a ring in your clubhouse. I believe that. Every once in a while, you get this organic thing that happens where a team comes out of nowhere. I believe it would be somewhere like the Atlanta Braves in 1991, where they went from last place to the World Series and a 7-game loss. Well, that's where we are right now with Verlander. And Verlander is he'll eat you a few innings. His lower extremities aren't what they were. He finds a way to have strains and pains in the hammies and the quads and stuff like that, but the arm still works. He still has some of the electricity on his off speed, his velocity. He's not going to blow anybody away, but again, 100 miles an hour, 3 digits on a gun is somewhat overrated. Yeah, you're throwing hard, but if you're throwing it straight and Major League Baseball players can hit it, it's called, well, a home run. All right. That's basically how that thing works. So I would suspect that on a team that really has been encumbered by the inconsistency of their pitching staff, when somebody other than Skubal is on the hill, I think Tiger fan, you can feel good about this move. You will. But I still think, in my heart of hearts, and all the G that's in me, that the most fascinating story in Major League Baseball this year remains the LA Dodgers and the quest for a three-peat. And to me, that is the holy grail that sets you above all the other, even championship managers, okay? It's tough to win one. You've made history going back to back. If you win it 3 times in a row, you now become immortal. And in many respects, I can make a compelling argument that Dave Roberts is already immortal, if for no other reason than, A, this would be back-to-back for the Dodgers, okay, and a third time, all right. Then you got to look at the historical significance of Dave Roberts as a player. I mean, think about that for a minute. Joe Torre would probably have one more World Series had Dave Roberts not stole that base with his team down a run in a critical American League Championship Series game. I think it was like Game 5. Yankees had a 3-1 lead. All they had to do was go ahead and finish it out. They couldn't. The series goes back to New York. Boston wins, and everybody is stunned silence. So, and already Dave Roberts' shoes from that night are in the Hall of Fame. So you could already say that he's taken 2 steps into the Hall of Fame with what he did to the Yankees. And that is a fascinating story. The synergy, the energy of all that kind of stuff is just totally bananas to me. It really, really is. So I think about where the Dodgers are, and they are loaded. I mean, you still got Mookie Betts, who, again, is destined for first ballot Hall of Fame. There's no way you can even approach that subject 5 years from the day that Mookie Betts walks away from the game. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame. There is no doubting that, barring some sort of off-field malfeasance, which, I mean, he just doesn't come across as the guy that would do anything stupid like this. So here's his time. The question you have to ask about the Dodgers, though, is a serious question, okay? Will they stay healthy? And this is an enormous challenge that Dave Roberts faces right now, because remember, it was barely before Thanksgiving that the Dodgers won the World Series. And here we are, before the next Valentine's Day. We still got 4 days to go. So those of y'all who haven't done what you need to do as far as that significant other is concerned, you need to get on your game. All right? Trust me. And again, those of y'all who've been listening to me through various iterations know that holidays are gift days for women. Okay? That's why they start the Valentine's Day process somewhere 3 to 4 weeks after Christmas. You start seeing this proliferation of Zales commercials. And heaven forbid you're having movie night because somebody's fascinated by, wow, that's a beautiful ring. You get that choke in your throat. What am I going to do here? I can't afford a $800,000, $900,000 ring. Heck, I'm not Mookie Betts, right? But that's what it is. You know, that's part of the reason that guys feel so much pressure going into Christmas, because as soon as football season kicks off, the countdown to Christmas and another dime. Ain't easy being a G these days. Just ain't easy. But Mookie Betts will come into the season looking to add to his historic resume. Shohei Ohtani is looking to add to his. The trick is, and this is something that I understand players wanting to play. I do understand that. All right, but coming off the intensity of the World Series, Mookie Betts is going to play for Team USA. Shohei Ohtani is going to play for Japan. It is a big thing for these athletes to represent for their countries. However, if I was the owner, if I owned the Dodgers, I'd be like, you know, fellas, I probably would have given them a couple of weeks off extra to take care of themselves. But they competitors, this World Baseball Classic thing, and it'll be interesting to see because the Dodgers are going to be definitely impacted by players who have played in the WBC. There's no getting around that. And remember, these players are going to be playing high-pressure baseball games and not quite in baseball shape. Although, see, when you watch the World Baseball Classic this year, this is why the Caribbean teams will have a bit of an advantage because they play intense baseball in the Caribbean World Series every winter. So I'm anxious to see how older players from the Dodgers are going to react to having played in an intense, you know, compressed series. Something to be said when you're not as long as the tooth, or when you're a little too long in the tooth, I should say these days, sometimes your body doesn't react when you need it to. And then the Dodgers will be practicing out in Arizona and they'll be playing all the games in warm weather environments. What happens to your body when you start going to the East Coast or the Midwest when it hasn't warmed up? It takes about 6 weeks to warm up during baseball season. So the Dodgers are the interesting case study. They had a long-winded run to the World Series title last year. Short rest on vacation. Key players playing in the World Baseball Classic for a number of different teams. Heck, the Dodgers are like the farm system for the WBC. I mean, it's crazy, isn't it? The fickle hand of fate is firmly in the hand of the baseball gods right now. All right? So if you're a Dodger fan or you one who wants to see history, here it is. Because they've got more money to spend than any other team in the league, and which is kind of crazy because they're deferring a lot of that money. So if you're a Dodger fan now and you're in your formative years of loving baseball, it'll be interesting to see how the dynasty of the day impacts the potential for championships in the future. I mean, Ohtani is going to be on the books for about 25 years in deferred money. Deferreds only work well for the athlete. Rarely, if ever, do they work out for the team. Because when you got to make that payment, that extra $3.5–4 million payment annually, you don't have as much money to go out in the free agency. And I'm one of those people that believes at some point there is going to be a salary cap. Okay. Now, what that salary cap number looks like, I don't know, but I could see it around easily. It would have to be $150 million on the low end. You can't compete. And then you'll see a lot more deferred money because that works out pretty well for the owners. But still, those deferred payments and the big money that happens now put your team on blast to carve your legacy. And if it goes awry in the next 2 decades for a year or 5 or 7, and everybody's up in arms, because that's what we do with sports, we kind of pass down the tradition of misery. If your team stinks and your franchise that sucks, you know how it was, Cubs fan. You know how it was on the south side of Chicago, too. Diehard baseball town, great baseball town, legacy of disappointment. I mean, they've had some moments now. And many of them are right here. They've had some moments. But that's not necessarily the benchmark that you want to follow as it relates to creating a dynastic, historic impact on the game. And that's where we are, folks, on the game. Anyway, we got a lot to talk about between now and the start of spring training. We got an all-star game coming up this weekend. I hope the guys play. I really, really do, especially after that ignorance last night. Another one of those Malice in the Palace wannabe kind of things, which was really disgusting. So disappointed in the Pistons and the Hornets. Got to do better than that. Dude's getting suspended before the all-star break. I mean, you just can't put yourself in a position where you lose your cool to the extent that you're going to harm your team's chances for the greater good. Anyway, it is your boy, Professor G. Mark Gray. OG Sports Rap continues as we roll on the other side. Remember, download the mobile app. We all we got. Thanks for hanging out with your boy, Professor G. As always, I truly appreciate you coming along for the ride to hang out with us. We didn't have the bar stock tonight. So those of you who came in, hopefully we trimmed you up just enough so that you can go out feeling good and looking good for yourself. And hopefully you're feeling a little bit better than LeBron James was last night. In case you missed it, King James had some pretty critical comments of his teammates. They weren't harsh, but they were critical. Now, there's a difference between being harsh and being critical. Harsh is abusive. You're disrespecting people. You have tendency to say things that when you go back in retrospect, you regret. And having had a few slips of the tongue in my day, I can understand that. But I will tell you this. If I'm LeBron James right now, not only am I frustrated with the way things are going right now during the season, but I'm really pissed off that there will not be a 22nd consecutive year of me being in the All-Star game. I mean, that is just unbelievable, right? LeBron James and what may be a farewell tour, U.S. against the world. Now, again, he's got an arthritic foot, so he probably wouldn't be able to play in the game anyway. And even for an all-star, the best ability is availability. And King James has given us everything that he's had, kind of like Lindsey Vonn, all right? And with all due respect, I'm going to jump over to the Olympics for a second, because when I see another girl dad, stressing over his baby who happens to be a world-class champion, and he says he wants his daughter to retire, I think it's best. Listen to Pops. Pops wants the best for you. He's not going to sleep easy when you're coming down that hill at about 80 miles an hour. No, he just doesn't want you to do that. Okay? So I get where he's coming from. But then that brings us to LeBron, who didn't mince words last night. You can say what you want about LeBron James and the way he carries himself, and I would totally disagree. I think he's been a great ambassador to the game. He's been a steward. Everybody, when you at that level, has some diva in you, and we've seen diva moments during the course of LeBron James' career. Like, when he, quote, took his talents to South Beach. Remember that? To play for the Miami Heat and team up with Ray Allen, big shot Ray. Never will there be a bigger shot than that was for that team that year. And LeBron got his ring. But now LeBron's probably not even going to play 65 games this year so he could qualify for some kind of postseason award. Face it, Father Time and Mother Nature are never defeated. And we're talking about a guy who spent $1 million a year on his body throughout the course of the season. And even he's now breaking down. But amongst all that, and this is when you know LeBron is becoming an OG. I never thought I would say this. LeBron is officially an OG now. All right. Because he did not hold any punches back after a tough loss. He criticized his team for not being able to match the intensity of a world championship team like Oklahoma City. Okay? And that's frustrating him because the king is used to, crowning folks and not being crowned. So when you hear LeBron make a statement like, quote, "We can't sustain energy and effort for 48 minutes, and they can." That's a championship team right there. We're not, end quote. Wow. Didn't sound like to me he was ready to quit on him, but he also sounds like he's frustrated at the climate that's being created in that locker room and on the floor. And I'm sorry, folks, just because J.J. Redick can break down games on the internet and with LeBron, and they come up with great content, it does not mean that J.J. Redick is a good coach. He may have the best basketball philosophy. We know he studied under the brilliance of Mike Krzyzewski, so he knows the game. But there are intangibles to coaching that I don't think J.J. Redick gets. He doesn't get the mental side of the game. And in the words of, at that level of Yogi Berra, 90% of the game is half mental. And when you can't berate grown-ass men, even when they're in their 20s, who are rich, they've got more money than they ever had before in their life, they're professional athletes and they got big egos, you can't be talking to them any old kind of way. There are a lot of great coaches who won a lot of games in the NBA who have players that hate them. There aren't too many. There was a coach named George Karl, coached several places in the league, even took the Seattle Supersonics, now the Oklahoma City Thunder, I might add, to the NBA Finals. He's also the first coach to be a number one seed in the playoffs and lose to Denver in the first round with Dikembe Mutombo. All right, we've seen it. And talk to players who've ever talked about George Karl, and they will tell you the guy understands the game. He doesn't know how to cooperate with people. And there are a long list of NBA coaches who have great basketball minds, but don't have the communication skills to get their message across properly. I saw J.J. Redick, on a post-game clip where he was heated after a loss, and he was like I told the guys in the locker room, tomorrow's practice is going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be uncomfortable. What is that, a threat? You got to threaten grown men? I'm telling you, man, the concept of J.J. Redick being the smartest guy in the room, knowing everything and at the top of the game, it's not going down like that. His concepts aren't working. Now, again, when you make a trade to get Luka Doncic, you're expecting Luka Doncic to play. And the Dodgers have, the Lakers, I'm in baseball mode here, sorry. The bottom line is guys aren't contributing and guys aren't healthy. Now, why that is, we don't know. Because this was supposed to be the season that Luka Doncic played all that basketball and got into great shape. And now here we are at the 3/4 pole mark of the season, right? Let's be clear about that. And Luka's breaking down, quad injuries, all right? So let's understand that there are certain elements in place right now that JJ, bickering or Redick just losing his composure. And it's tough being a coach. But you know something? If you're a supervisor in any capacity, and let's be real for a second, the head coach of the basketball players is the immediate supervisor. All right? Let's be clear about that. So if you got a supervisor that doesn't know how to, deal with his employees properly, you're going to have these issues. So again, LeBron's probably, if he's got arthritis in his foot, I can't see LeBron coming back next year. I know his ego is going to want him to play with his kids. I can't see him do that. So what happens to J.J. Redick after that? It's Luka Doncic's team. Do you think Luka Doncic wants to be re-rated all the time? He's the face of the franchise. He's the guy you're hitching your giddy up to for the next decade to restore the greatness of the Lakers. But, I mean, with the attitude that I see J.J. Redick having right now is the kind of stuff that will make Luka yearn for a spot back in Texas. But then again, that's just me. To a lighter note, though, let's give credit where credit is due. Because, again, this is Black History Month. Now, Black History Month starts for me on Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday. But now we are in the throes of what is considered, A, the shortest day of the year. I'm sorry, the shortest month of the year. And B, most important, it's the time, and we got the fewest number of days to celebrate the most accomplishments by any group of minorities in this country. I said it, I'm claiming it, it is what it is. Okay? So we can claim another one yet, ladies and gentlemen, because time was when I grew up, in the days of black and white television, rabbit ears, rotating telephones, busy signals, UHF channels, who had the really cool stuff, like Soul Train. You know what I'm saying? I don't know how many of y'all watch Soul Train on one of the VHF stations. Where I grew up, the only place you found Soul Train was on some place that had UHF. The old circular antenna that you would hook on. It would be under your rabbit ears or something. But this is why we like the Olympic Games. The thrill of victory, the agony of defeat, and of course the triumph that goes with become a champion. And while she's not a champion in terms of the Olympics yet, but we got to give major props to a young lady on the U.S. women's hockey team named Layla Edwards. Yeah, Layla Edwards. What's in the name? Greatness is in the name Layla, as we saw with Muhammad Ali's daughter, and she became a world champion women's boxer. Well, this Layla Edwards has become the first Black American woman today, or I guess it was yesterday, Italy time, but today, American time, she scored the first goal by a Black woman in the history of USA Olympic hockey. I think it's a damn shame after the many years of Title IX and opportunities for, young people to learn how to skate, that we haven't seen more young Black women get into the sport of hockey. It's an expensive sport, but you just can't find too many sisters doing what Layla Edwards did. And what I would love to see is that she scores the winning goal in the gold medal match, even if it's against Canada this time, right? Because last year I was, so overwhelmed by this imperialism that I had to pull for Canada in the Nations Cup. And it came down to Canada, U.S., and I had to break out the Montreal Canadiens jersey, and boom, Canada won. We don't want that this time, all right? But we're down with Layla Edwards. Make no mistake about that. That's a great look. I heard her talk. She was with Emily Kaplan from ESPN. well-spoken young lady. Got to be physically tough because why? She's a hockey player, and I wonder, do women who play hockey fight? I mean, that's one of the things that we would go to. A lot of people go to NHL matches to see, is just because they fight. Hey, look, that's going to close the book for me. Don't forget, folks, All-Star Weekend. This just in, Steph Curry not participating in the All-Star game. He's going to be replaced by Brandon Ingram. We'll have more on that tomorrow. Till next time, it's your boy, Professor G. Mark Gray. This has been OG Sports Rap on the network. Don't forget, download the mobile app, because we all we got. See you in 22 hours.